members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm Fahima Mohammed, your host for tonight, as well as your relationship and couples coach. I'm so excited for another episode, and a warm welcome from all of us here on British Muslim TV to all of you viewing, whether it's on Sky Channel 752, Facebook or Twitter. We love all your discussions that you are having with us, the interactions that you have with your comments on Facebook and Twitter, as well as you have the opportunity to speak to us tonight live on the show. If you want to call in, you can do so by dialing 01924231083. Please do ask the bill pays permission, as standard network rates do apply. However, if you want to message me and I will read out your messages, it can be anonymous. You can do so on the free WhatsApp service, and that number is 07585835150. I love to hear the opinions that you have and the interactions that we can have tonight. So you are more than welcome to discuss with us, but we have an amazing, lovely guest today, and her name is Uzma Naqv. Assalamu alaikum, Uzma.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah. How are you, Sister Fahima?
Even better to see you tonight here with us. So grateful for your time and the opportunity to hear you speak. Really, really grateful. Thank you so much, Uzma.
Alhamdulillah, the pleasure is absolutely mine. Thank you so much for inviting me again.
Well, we're going to be talking about how self-development can shift your relationship. I know this is straight up your street with regards to the work that you do, the people that you help. And there's so many Muslim coaches out there today. And it's an amazing insight to sort of understand what does that mean and how is that working, especially for our relationships. And especially we find that there's a lot of Muslim women who are now coaches, who are now on that self-development journey. Now, what does self-development mean for you? So that we can maybe describe it to our viewers, alongside, tell me a little bit about what exactly as well is your profession and how you help people.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, Fahima, again. I'm going to try to answer this, if you permit me, in a slightly long-winded way. So please bear with me while I try to go through this in a kind of a coherent step-by-step way. And I'll incorporate it, maybe not in the order that you've asked. But let me start with just kind of noticing what's going on around us. If you notice, there is something quite profound happening in the world right now. As a collective human race, we are evolving, shifting. There is this grander realization that is taking place. And luckily, even science is finally catching up with all of this. And this realization is quite fast-paced compared to even like a decade ago. And that is that we are more than just this physical body, this aspect of us. Non-Muslims and non-believers alike are now telling us that we are more than just this physical body. And one of the things that I teach about and I'm really fascinated with is the phenomena of parenting and how that affects this shift that has taken place and is taking place right now. So let's kind of have a look at maybe let's start with our generation, and I will connect it to what you're asking as well. If you just bear with me, I'm taking a slightly longer route. So if we talk about our generation, and I'm assuming we're kind of roughly similar age, the millennials. When we were young, the new concepts of parenting at large today are, if we notice, they are vastly different, hugely different than what we had when we were younger. To understand our youth and our upbringing, we need to understand exactly what was happening back in the 80s and 90s. And if you remember, we were exposed to all kinds of, I don't know if I dare to say, detrimental parenting methods, unfortunately, that failed, and really backfired in a huge way. And most of the parents, unfortunately, were quite unconscious, not manipulatively, but just because that's all they knew about the effects of the methods that we were using and the kind of expectations they were holding from the children that they had. And I guess the assumption on the parents' part was that because they are the parent, because they said so, the kids should meet that expectation and become their dream child that they desire, to uphold this this notion and this value system that they want to present to the community. And parenting in the 80s and 90s were very, very controlling in a lot of senses, particularly in our culture. I mean, if we're on British Muslim TV, so we're going to talk about what's affected us as a community, right? And there was a lot of controlling going on. And it was more of a dictative kind of an atmosphere, much more so than connection. And obviously, I'm generalizing. Of course, there are going to be families that are exception to this. So, for example, kids in general were left unsupervised a lot of the times. Extended family setup was starting to get dismantled a little bit. Kids weren't really emotionally connected to the parent or any other member of the community. They weren't really heard or seen in an emotional sense. And at the time, the expectations of being like this A-star student and getting great jobs and, you know, earning a good amount of money and having a structure to the family and making everything work in a really kind of fantastic fashion. There was a lot of praise going on. If the child fitted into that box of values that was set by the parents or the community, and the minute the child stepped out of that, it was almost like there was an instant punishment that was given to the child. So why is this all important to the question that you've asked me? Well, when we look at this closely, we see that now the millennials, such as us, the people that are now starting to change and shift situations and things that are happening, we have started to feel the pain of that parenting method, of that time that we had, the naughty corners and the, disconnection from the adults in our lives, and all of that. We don't want to repeat the history. We don't want this hurt that we're carrying to be passed on to the next generation. And because this has affected our adulthood, this has affected our relationships, this has affected our community, the way we communicate, the way we are triggered, the way we get angry, the way we react to people, the way we become people pleasers, the way we become perfectionists, the way we're seeking validation from people. These are all two very common things that a lot of millennials have in common. And so with this realization, there are so many wonderful new parenting methods, sometimes actually going a bit too far the other way. But nevertheless, it is vastly different. And it creates this new phenomena of emotions. Like, what is this phenomena, and why is our body speaking to us, and what is it trying to tell us, and how does this play a part in our lives, and why does that change everything and the way that we behave and everything? This is the reason that we are starting to see this coaching industry blow up in such a major way, because people are awakening through their pain. People are starting to create this shift because they were constricted for far too long. They didn't have a voice. They didn't have a significance in the world. And finally, they're expanding their wings to say, hold on, there is more to me than just this. And I think that's what's creating that initial shift that you're asking about. Where does self-development come in? It's the shift, and inshallah we will elaborate more on how pain can create something like this. So if it wasn't for parenting mistakes made back then, today the self-help industry would not have existed, especially not have existed in the way that it does today. And this is what happens when we are, as a collective nation, when we have a lot of pain and difficulty to deal with, we shift from one place to another, and that's how it just can't go unnoticed anymore. So to me, personal development is the evolvement. It's like the caterpillar has been in the cocoon far too long, and it's now started to crack the shell, and the wings are starting to emerge, and some of the people have become butterflies, and that's the process we're going through right now. That's what it means to be in this industry, to me.
Beautifully described. That's why you're here tonight, and absolutely honored for your description, for your insight, and the way in which you actually have described that. I've never thought of it like that before, even though we've said it in so many different ways, but you've actually highlighted a story as to how we grow up, the influences that is around us, and how that has an impact on ourselves and especially our relationships. And beautifully described, Uzma. I couldn't have said it better myself. So thank you for that introduction. That was really relevant. And I think it's given a lot of people insight into this even coaching and self-development industry, which is very helpful and useful. But we're going to go and explain a little bit more as to what you described. So tell me what you were talking about with regards to the pain and how to overcome that. And what is that pain? What is that uncomfortable feeling and emotion that comes out of, bad or sort of destructive or, unconscious parenting that we can maybe be aware of? I mean, are we doom and gloom, or do we have actual some sort of way of moving forward and coming out of this kind of cocoon, like you said?
Yeah, amazing question. I'm so glad you asked. So to me, the way that I've understood this, and I come from a lot of personal experiences, actually, when I talk about this, you'll hear me get really passionate about certain and probably get really loud about things. That's because I feel it and I'm talking about it in that respect. So do bear with me when I get like that. But basically what's happening is, if you understand a child, when a child comes into this world with a beautiful essence, from alim arwah, we say labbaik to this life, we come into this world and we are quite instantly constricted into this world. First of all, because of our physicality, because we're physically now in this frame, we've become a little human who is helpless completely. And we come from nothing but love. Godly love and divine kind of atmosphere into this world, which is very different, to just put it lightly. And what happens is, whichever family we come into, that family holds a system that's working for that family. So that family has their own sets of values, their own ways of working, their own do's and don'ts, their own okays and not okays. And this child is at the mercy of the parents, who are the driving factor of his or her life.
Well, I'm going to have to stop you there, Uzma, because you know what? You're giving us so much information, but I want to make sure that we actually process all of this, because we are coming into a short break. I want the viewers to actually take heed of what's been said. This is so important information so far. And inshallah, when we do come back from the break, Uzma's going to continue. And I actually have been sent so many messages already, which I'll also be reading them out. So please stay tuned. Stay exactly where you are. We're going to definitely be heading back into a short break and coming back and answering more of your questions. See you so shortly.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We have a fantastic guest tonight, Uzma, who's telling us so much about the self-development and coaching industry and how does that actually have an impact on our relationships today. Uzma, you were explaining very beautifully about the values that we have in our families, how it's upheld, and how children have to kind of fit into it. Is that a good or a bad thing, or how would you describe that?
Well, it's a journey, and it's part of our growth. It's necessary. I wouldn't say being hurt as a child is necessary, but it's the way it is, right? We come into these families, and families uphold their own values. So when a child comes into a family, we want the child to be like us. We want the child to do what we want him or her to do. So let me give you a very brief example. If a girl was born in a family that believes that girls shouldn't be loud, girls shouldn't be strong, girls shouldn't really get educated too much, because what are they going to do at the end of the day? They're just going to be cooking and cleaning. So what's the point? I mean, I know these are quite old values, but these are true values that we've had to deal with at some point in time. What happens is, if that girl happens to be headstrong, somebody who's loud, knows how to get her way, knows how to be her own person. The value system of the family, and she receives a message that if I behave the way that I'm asked to behave, I am accepted. What does a child want when he or she is growing up? Very, very young. The only primary need they have is to be loved, to be connected, to be significant, to be seen, heard, and just be there, like be loved. And they get the message that the only way they are loved is by being like this. And the minute they step away from this and be their authentic self, they're not accepted. There is a punishment that happens. And in that whole thing that's taking place, the message that the child receives, they start to fragment. So their authentic self starts to chip away. They start to get different. They start to come up with strategies and coping mechanisms to stay within this family system, to stay connected. And so authenticity gets messed up in that very, very young age. This is called fragmentation.
Do you think it's mainly in the West where Muslims are actually having this kind of issue? Or do you think that, you know, in certain countries, it might be less? What's your opinion on that?
I think that just because a community is able to mask it very well, and they're able to churn out children who have just become such amazing people pleasers that you can't even tell the difference anymore, it exists everywhere. If the parenting was hurtful, it has an effect in your adulthood, like full stop. There is no two ways about it. So this fragmentation is what causes this whole the pain and suffering that we end up realizing. And what's happening now, if we go back to our generation, the millennials, is that the gap between the authentic self and this self that we created is just so vast that we, at this, you know, midlife crisis, as some people, you and I both know, call it, is that they come to this realization that, hold on, like, this is not me. I don't like this. I don't like being in this state. I'm not accepting of this. Or who am I? Why am I here? And all these really fundamental, amazing questions that we get to ask ourselves. Then when we start to ask these really amazing questions, is that we start to kind of backtrack and do a reverse gear and understand what that memory blueprint is that we're holding on the inside of ourselves. This is the internal system, the God's given gift of our emotions that is already programmed inside of us. And that's what keeps churning out all these different triggers. And that is what we are basically, that when we are triggered, that's what we go back to. So unless the healing takes place at the core, we can't really do anything different on the outside. And that's why a lot of the things that keep repeating again and again, and the hurt that we keep passing on from generation to generation, is exactly this, is because whatever's programmed is the only thing we can pass on with the best will in the world. Even if we want to be the greatest parent, if we are carrying hurt, we can only pass on hurt. It's all subconscious. It's not like sitting there thinking, I'm going to ruin my child's life. Nobody does that. It happens because that's what we have on the inside of ourselves. So there is a process.
It's interesting that you say that, actually, because I know that we are all brought up to a certain point where we are conditioned by the values that our parents know to the best of their knowledge. And a lot of parents do want the best for their children, and they bring them up in a way where they are only safeguarding them, protecting them. So what does it mean then for an adult who has all these questions about themselves, who wants to divert a little bit, but at the same time, there are certain strict boundaries with regards to, you know, not just always accepting your emotions for what they are and following suit, because there is a fine line for that as well, where it's like, I feel this way, so this is how it is. And that's what the other side of the self-development industry is. It's a lot about the self. It's all about, you know, the individual. And if it doesn't serve me, and if I don't like it, then I can even leave my relationship. Because a lot of people that now are growing in their self, they are growing and their partners are not growing. And they're leaving their partners because the mindset is totally different. And it's not just about the pain, it's about them evolving and seeing something. But at the same time, there is a conversation that needs to be had about that too, right?
Absolutely, 100%. I love that question. I can't wait till I answer it. Okay, so for me, like this whole fragmentation that I talked about, beyond that, when we ask those really amazing, powerful questions, we have to get to a space of an integration process where we get to learn. So let's address the emotions, because you asked a really fundamental question there about the emotions and should we trust our emotions every single time. So here's what I say, and this is in a nutshell, like there's a lot of dissection to do here to really understand it at a deeper level, but in a broader sense, this is what I want to say. What you are feeling right now is the exact truth for you with the perception you are using to see the situation for what it is. However, if like you can't know whether your perception is the correct, you have to question whether the perception you're holding is the correct one or not. The meaning you're giving to the story is correct or not. So whatever you're feeling is true because of the meaning that you've given to this situation. So that's why before we start to heal the pain, we need to understand like what is at the core and why is this emotion coming up? Because when you question the emotion, you're going to question the meaning. And when you question the meaning, that's going to go back to the blueprint that it derives from, it comes from. So it's a lot more deeper process than just saying, if your emotion is saying you should be free of this person who's no longer compatible to you, then, you know, shake your hands off of them and walk away. That's not how it works. You know, I think that there is a fine line, as you said, between understanding yourself and accepting the situation for what it is around you. There is a healing process that we must go through. And this healing process and going through this painful process is the exact thing that we have been brought into this world for. The expansion of our consciousness. The growth is all about this, you know, and the connection between the pain and the expansion is that human consciousness, and this is happening at the mass level right now. Maybe slowly, but it's definitely happening even at the grander scale to domestics like level. And the example is a very simple example is when men felt very entitled to a functioning home, to a wife who should be subservient regardless of whether she's working full time or whatever is happening, that when he comes back from work, there should be this and this, you know, pre-planned and done for him and things like that. We are now seeing there is a change. You know, the men are now starting to take responsibility around the house. I'm not saying it's conquered and everything's all amazing right now, but we're certainly seeing that shift. The beginning of this shift is starting to take place. This only took place because the woman felt pain. She asked the question. She started to try to figure out why this is happening. Why am I feeling like this? If it was set that this was the value I was brought up with, and if the value suited her, she wouldn't be asking those questions. So there is an expansion that's happening at a larger scale. And when it comes to leaving relationships, if somebody is growing and the other party isn't growing, there's two ways to look at this. Number one, and the simpler way, is that you cannot fast forward somebody else's journey. Like if you've had an epiphany, if you have had a journey where you're now understanding life in a different sense and you're being able to see why things are happening, you can't expect and click your fingers and say, well, because I understand it, you better jump on board. You know, this happens a lot with people who become religious. A woman who started wearing a hijab very recently, a man who started practicing his deen very, very, authentically. He wants everybody to jump on board without forgetting that it took him 40 years to get to this place in the first place. Like, you know, you can't fast forward somebody else's journey. So this is a really real situation. We must understand that we can't pull someone else into our space. We can certainly give them a platform to be able to evolve. We should give them the information so that if they are enticed to, they're welcome to this pathway. But we can't make them do it. You can't make anybody do anything. This is the God's given gift that we have, which is called free will, and we have to leave people to choose to use their free will or not, and that's entirely up to them whether they are going to do that or not. The second,
could you live with someone though? Could you live with someone who is not on the level, shall we say, as you are?
So that's the second part that I was going to answer with, and perhaps it will encompass it within that. So the second way to look at it is for me that I would say there are like three categories of men that you can't like really do anything with. They should be discarded, perhaps. I don't know if I should be daring enough to say this in this platform, but you know what?
You just did. So it's fine.
I'm just going to go for it. So number one, a man who is abusive. And I don't mean just verbally abusive. I mean physically hurting you. You shouldn't be in that situation. Point blank. Like that's it. Secondly, a man who is a serial cheater. He just can't hold himself back. He keeps going and repeating the same thing again. And third is a man who is addicted to either alcohol or drugs or porn or anything like that that's detrimental to your family system. These people are, unless they are willing and they have this big, change in their mind and then they want help, you can't change them. So the decision has to come from them. Aside from these three men, everyone else can be worked with if there is a willingness. That's the caveat. If you see
I'm going to leave it there because that is a really pinnacle point that you made, and we are heading into a break shortly. And you've given us so much food for thought, really. And I am just buzzing right now. I can't wait to hear what you're going to say next. It's just so, basically, it's perfect the way in which you tell your story. And you are giving a story, Uzma. The way you're talking about self-development, the way you're describing how we live, the way in which we are brought up, and the impact of this. I've never really had anyone speak like that on the show. So I'm really grateful for this. And inshallah, I hope you're enjoying this part as much as I am, because this episode is only about to blow up even more. Make sure you do stay with us. And we have Uzma to answer more questions from myself. And if you want to ask more questions, please do send them through and I will read them out to her. We have a few more breaks that we're going to come to, and it's going so fast. But inshallah, when we do come back, I will be reading out some of your questions and we will be talking more to Uzma. And inshallah, we'll see you in a few moments. Stay exactly where you are. Don't go away. Join us in a few seconds. Take care. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We have the wonderful storyteller who is giving us such beautiful insights today on the self-development journey. And Uzma, honestly, I'm really saying this from the bottom of my heart. You are actually like, listening like to a movie, because you're describing things which is so vivid. I feel like I am on this journey with you when you're talking and explaining things. Before the break, you were talking a little bit about the people that, you should really avoid, and it's difficult for them to change and for them to actually have, good relationships with. Okay, the ones that want to work on it, you were talking about that. And even when they want to work at it, it's very difficult when they come from different levels of mindset, of thinking, and it is a struggle, and you have to have that patience. What would you advise couples that are on different journey levels, that are all on the self-development journey, but one isn't even, interested? They're not actually there. They're not actually, even thinking about it. So is there still hope for couples in that way?
A beautiful question, a very powerful question, and actually is a reality for a lot of women. I mean, I work with women, so every time I mention women, it's because it's just natural for me, because I work with women. But this is generically true for men and women if they are connected with somebody who's just not on the same pathway. I want to answer this in the format of discussing something called unconditional love, which we have romanticized to a crazy extent, and something that we should dissect a little bit. So is it realistic to want a relationship without any consequences? Is it realistic to have a relationship no matter what he or she does or doesn't do at the detriment of that relationship? Or if that person, if the person that you're connected with has no appreciation for your values, they to any degree, and they will do whatever they want to do, and any conflict, any suffering that is happening, they're kind of disconnected with it or giving a lot of pain. When we are looking at love like that, when we have programmed our minds through movies and books and romanticized this whole notion of unconditional love, this is what ends up happening. We end up getting trapped into relationships where partners have nothing to give, nothing to contribute, nothing to, it's more of a thing that we expect of a woman, this selfless, sacrificial entity within a relationship that, it's quite shocking when a woman walks away from a relationship, because it's like, well, she should have made more of an effort to make it work. It's less so when a man walks away. And this is just the unfortunate truth. That's just how it is. So when we want to have a relationship, it must be from a place of knowing who we are. And this is where self-help industry comes into play. this is why it's become such a big phenomenon. Actually, when I teach my clients, and I have a lot of clients who aren't yet married, I talk about marriage a lot in a lot of deep senses in 3 segments, actually. One is pre-marriage. Who should you be? What do you bring to the party? And second is the actual marriage, if it's gone stale and it's not really working out, and how to make it thrive again. And the third is after marriage, because this is a reality for so many women in our community, that divorce is a real thing. It's been on the rise for a long, long time. And what happens to life after you have, a relationship has come to an end.
Well, before you continue with that, I do have a question, actually. Someone said that they do agree with most things that you're saying, and they love you being on the show today. So thank you for being with us tonight. And they do agree with you. However, they do actually question the fact that you mentioned 3 types of men to not trust, or they're not worthy of a life partner. But how about the women? Are those traits the same for a woman as they are for men? Because I guess, people are feeling...
I noticed me saying that, and that's why I just justified it literally a moment ago to say, when you hear me say women, it's because my clients are women. And so I'm just so used to saying, it's a habitual thing. I'm so used to saying women. Whatever I'm saying is true for both of parties. And it's the unfortunate truth that it's more of a truth for women than it is for men. That's just, it goes without saying. If you're from this community, you'll know this to be true in your own lives, or you'll see other couples that are around, and you'll see that this is what actually happens. But I don't mean to discriminate against the men. When I say women, it's because I'm just programmed to say women. I work with women only. So moving on about like this unconditional aspect. If we don't know who we are, if we don't know what we want, if we're able, like if we're just accepting whatever comes our way, the very first person that says to I love you, and it's like, oh my goodness, I found my knight in shining armor and he's going to come and, sort everything out for me. This is what happens with a lot of young girls who don't know about themselves, and they think that the fixture to their life and this constriction that they live in, perhaps in a controlling situation with parents, that the only way out is to jump into a marriage. And what that brings is just a mind-blowing amount of pain and more suffering, right? And this goes into a really beautiful topic that I want to touch on in a minute about the law of attraction and how that works. But when we go into a marriage, we should know everything first and foremost about ourselves, and secondly about what we want from the other party. But we can't ask for what we want if we don't know who we are in the first place. What are our triggers? Why are they there in the first place? What are our values that define who we are? How much are we able to or willing to compromise on them? What if somebody tramples over our values? Are we able to, and are we going to continue loving unconditionally, still trying to romanticize in these toxic relationships? We have to meet people where they are right now in their lives. Many young girls, and unfortunately women who are in trapped situations as well, make this mistake that they think they can go into a relationship and magically somehow, they do this by ignoring all the red flags. They're getting a lot of signs that this is not going to work. Like, I don't really respect you. I don't really care about your values. I just want this and this and this thing met by you. But they want to ignore all that in the hope that I can change this person. I can make him the way I want him to. I can make her the way that I want her to be. And this is tricky.
Well, they do actually. I don't even think half the time they even understand what are the red flags. So that's the other thing. And we do have another question. We have someone saying, Salam to Fahima and Uzma. My question before the end of the show is, thank you for your help on self-development and improvement can change. We all want the best version of ourselves and be the best Muslim we can be. My dating question related to this, if it's okay with the two of you, is what is the best way to approach a lady such as yourself as a hijabi? Should I say hi first? If I'm in a place where, is it okay to approach a lady? Do I give a compliment? Should I say kindly and respectfully ask for her number? So basically, this is, people that are struggling. They are maybe confident or lack of confidence. But, obviously we have rules and boundaries in our Islamic society, and it's very difficult. A lot of people might take it the wrong way. So what would you advise a young man or a woman who wants to approach someone? And most likely it's a man that would want, if they see a woman, I mean, we talk about and we complain about online dating, but actually to meet in person, especially if it's a stranger, we're not actually geared up for that. So it's a really good, question. And thank you for sending that in. And we also want to approach people where they don't think, oh my God, how can, he talk to me and this, that, and the other. So, is there a respectable way to actually approach a stranger and even, say, can I have your number or can you take mine? What is your thoughts on that?
That's a great question, and very subjective actually, because
Yes.
what's acceptable for one person is going to be so like disastrous for another person. So it's like it's like treading on eggshells, really, just depending on how that person might end up responding. And that is exactly what we're talking about. The journey of self-evolvement will determine how they are triggered by your question. If they've been brought up in a set of values that says women should never be approached by a man, and if they are good for nothing, and they're kharab and horrible women or whatever. If that's the kind of drilling that we've had, then of course a man asking for a number is going to be like, it's a terrible thing. But a woman in a different setup is going to see it in a different way. I think there is a respectful way. I think that first of all, if we are looking for really seriously searching for a partner, there is a very there is no one way. That's the first thing. Like, there's no one way. It's like in a respectful way, when you are approaching somebody, you can ask to in a setup where there's public people involved, and maybe you're bringing somebody and the other person's bringing somebody, and you're in a setup where there is no haram taking place, and you're able to, and that person is accepting of a situation where they're able to have conversations, because these conversations are so necessary. And if we think that we should go into a relationship or a marital situation or meeting the parent situation before we've asked some fundamental questions about our likes, our dislikes, our values, our system, what our triggers are, and all of these important stuff, then that is what brings on really difficult moments. So it's
Thank you, Uzma. We just had a response to that, because the person that sent the message said, thank you so much for that response. And I actually love the way you answered that question as well. I think no one could have said it as beautifully as you did. So do you think then, should we not look for a spouse until we've reached that self-development level? And if there is such a thing, what's your opinion on that?
Absolutely not. I am like, it's not even an objective. It's not even like, if you think maybe whatever. I think every woman and every man should go through a process of self-actualization. This is an Islamic, like when you're learning about yourself, you're actually in ibadah. You cannot reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without reaching yourself. You reach him through you. So your act of worship is you getting to know yourself better. When you know yourself better, you can reach Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a profound way. And then when you connect with somebody else, because you know yourself, because you've connected with your Lord, you are going to attract a person who's also on the same level. When you go in it willy-nilly and you think, just because he's got the right amount of money and he lives in the right kind of house and he doesn't live with his parents, so I don't have the in-laws to deal with, and whatever else is your value, then there will be other repercussions of that. There will be things that you will be on the receiving end of because of that. So knowing yourself at the core and asking the right questions is absolutely 1000% like the thing that you should do before you engage in any situation where you're even edging towards a marriage. Like, this is a must, 100%.
I love that. We are coming into the final break right now, but Uzma, you've actually, given us so many jewels tonight. I cannot say enough that you have to, whoever's watching, rewind again, keep going back, because you need to obviously take heed of what she said. It's so vital, so important, and so true what's happening in our society today, especially amongst our Muslim men and women. This is a show that is about relationships. It does address mostly young men and women and men who are married, as well as those who are after a relationship. So it does have benefit for anyone that's watching tonight. And we only use certain terminologies only because we're used to just saying those certain terms, but it is for everyone. But inshallah, we're going to come to a break, and we're going to have Uzma for the final part in a few moments. Please keep sending those messages through. Really appreciate the engagement, the interaction, and loving the conversation so far with our lovely guest today. And inshallah, we'll have a little bit more of her. So please stay exactly where you are. Don't go away, and we'll see you shortly. Take care.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the final part of Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. And it's gone so quickly, especially with you, Uzma, your storytelling, your amazing, amazing insights for every question that I've given you. Now, when you were talking before about attracting the right one because you know yourself, do you think it's a little bit more with regards to the law of attraction, energy? How do you know? I mean, how do we just be ourselves, know ourselves, and then expect to attract the other one? Can you explain a little bit more about that, please?
I love that question. I'm so glad that you asked it. So, a lot of people get this really wrong. Like, I've had people where I've talked about law of attraction and they're like, Astaghfirullah, you're a Muslimah and you're talking about the law of attraction. Do you not believe in Allah? And I was like, how people get it wrong, and they're not even willing to like expand this mind and just listen to a view and perhaps see if this is something that is even fitting to Islam or not. So I'm really, really glad that you've asked on this platform, because I love to talk about this. Is one of my favorite topics, and I love to talk about it, and I teach it in a very, very deep way as well. So generically, the law of attraction, if you Google it, it'll probably tell you that you will attract into your life whatever you think about and whatever you focus on the most. The law of attraction is basically the law that says that you only attract the things that you are vibrationally connected to. Like vibrationally, wherever you are, whatever you're emitting is what you are going to attract back into your life. That's the thing that you are a match to. So yes, there is an absolute place for attracting the like for like. The law of attraction is also called the law of mirroring, actually, and the reason it's called that is because you're literally mirroring what's on the inside. And if you just think about if you're like a projector and there's a projector screen on the outside, which is your life that you're living, it's literally like that. Whatever's going on the inside is happening on the outside of your life. So let's say that you're somebody who has a lack of self-esteem and you don't really have that much confidence. You are actually not able to attract anybody or anything that is of a higher self-esteem, higher vibration of esteem or confidence. You can only get where you are. And I can give tons of examples, but let's say that a young girl is abused when she's young. Let's say she's like maybe age 4 or something. And from that age, she's lost her sense of safety. She starts to believe that that's how girls should be treated. And she feels ugly, and she feels, as she's growing older, she's accumulated all these beliefs that she's not good enough, and she's not worthy of the kind of love that you hear about in the movies and what have you. And she grows up with those beliefs, and these beliefs are further solidified by the experiences she has in her life, perhaps by marriage, breaking down of her parents, or whatever else is going on in her life. Within the context of this girl's life, that's her core beliefs. Like the memory blueprint that I mentioned earlier are here telling her that that's who she is on the inside. Externally, her life, her adult life, and the relationships she's having, there will be triggers that are taking her directly back to what she holds on the inside. Like, did you know that 95% of everything you are and everything you do comes from your subconscious mind, which was programmed between the ages of 0 to 7? So all of that belief that you held from a very, very young age is now playing a part in your external life, in your adult life today. So it's absolutely matched, right? And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us something so amazing, which is our body speaking to us in the way of emotions. That's why I started this whole topic from parenting, because this is all interconnected. When we understand our emotions, when we become emotionally intelligent, we are using the gift of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has already given us what we need to become the people that we need to become. The essence that we came with can become reintegrated even if we lost it at a very young age. Within the context of Islam, I believe that the law of attraction is there to support human expansion, human consciousness to grow. I think that's the primary thing that the law of attraction. So what if we call it something else? To me, it translates to taqwa, the highest level of our state of being in this world. What is taqwa? If we look at taqwa in the context of trying to translate it, taqwa is consciousness. And when we think about law of attraction, and if it's talking about whatever you're focused on, whatever you believe, whatever you have on the inside is what you're attracting from the outside, isn't that what it is? Allah will be in the Quran, and I'm paraphrasing, Allah is for a mu'min whatever the mu'min believes Allah to be. If we hold an opinion of God that says, oh, I'm never going to find the one, oh, life is never going to work out for me, oh, I'm doomed forever, oh, meri kismat aisi hai in Urdu, I'm sure those who speak Urdu will understand that, right? So there is a lot going on the inside, and then we expect magically for somebody to just turn up and change everything that's going on in our lives without expanding our consciousness. When we start attracting things that we don't want in life, it is supposed to bring more consciousness. It is supposed to awake us more so that we can stop having those experiences, so that we can stop repeating this trauma and passing on hurt from generations to generations to generations. So the law of attraction, you can call it taqwa and consciousness and whatever else you want to call it, is an experience from God that we are omitting from our own selves because we are operating in that low frequency, and we keep attracting the same. And until we stop and reflect and use the faculty which gives us the benefit and the stamp of Ashraf al-Makhluk, being the highest of creation, that is when we align to what God wants for us. That is where we get to use our free will to stop the pain and start to live the life that we want to, and we can create that reality for ourselves in any day that we want, the day that we choose to awaken. Law of attraction to me primarily is God's way of waking us up and saying, hey, stay connected to me. I sent you into this world as an extension of me. I have my spirit inside of you, the root that we have, right? It's there to expand. If we stay stuck in this little hole that is filled with pain and we never question why the pain is coming in the first place, how are we going to grow? Right? It is your choice to use your God's given gift of free will, which is your freedom. No one else can take that away from you. Sometimes we are between a rock and a hard place and we think we don't have any choices. We always have choices. We've just trained our mind to say we don't really have choice because it's a difficult choice. But it is a choice nevertheless. God has given us this to us.
I'm glad you answered that question, and you did bring up law of attraction, because a lot of people, when they are looking for a partner, as I've just got a message as well saying, is it bad for me to be attracted to a Muslim hijabi and things like that? And it's not really the physical. It really isn't. And I think the way you described it right now, it's really understanding yourself and your connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then from there, you will look at your potential spouse totally differently. It's not just about the fact that you like the way they look. You're going to feel something. That's what's important. And that feeling is going to be so unique and different to anything else that you've ever had. And it's going to be for that one person. And I think we need to really think deep about what Uzma said tonight. And self-development is part of ibadah, most definitely, because that's when you're going to enter into amazing relationships, because you understand your meaning and purpose in life. And obviously with that comes, your core beliefs, your values and things like that. So do actually take an interest in this kind of journey. I think it's really vital. We are coming towards the end of the show, Uzma. I want to make sure that you have the final thoughts and words, and you give us something to think about. I mean, you've given us loads, but just some final thoughts. And also, if anyone wants to reach you, how do they reach you? Because I honestly could listen to you for another couple of hours easily, because you literally take me like as if, I'm on a journey myself with the beautiful way that you explain things. So some final thoughts and your details as well, please.
Jazakallah khair, Fahima. It's always such a pleasure to connect with you. And thank you so much for your love and kindness. Alhamdulillah. What I want to leave with people with a thought process that tells you that, look, we are so consumed by the physicality of who we are, we have forgotten that there is another aspect to us, the higher aspect, the soul aspect. And we neglect that to an extent that is heartbreaking. And that is why we are having such immense and big problems in our lives. When we can see the higher self and this temporal self, if we have a desire in this is lower physical self, the higher self is wanting to make that come true. It is in connection. It also wants what you want. The difference is that its perception, its way of taking you there is going to be very different than this temporal self. Because time, remember, is only linear in this world. Time has there is no such thing as time when it comes to our soul. Our soul sees our purpose in life, and that's where it wants to take us. So it could take us a decade in this world to achieve something that we really want to, or get the love that we really desire. But from a soul's perspective, It's just looking at getting to the right place in the right format. So if you can stop and think about that and feed the soul more and connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala more through knowing your own self, through using self-development as a tool in order for you to not only find somebody who is amazing for you, who is on the right page and has the right perspective and has the right kind of respect for you, you have to go through the journey of self-actualization, connect with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then find that person. Like, you can't just jump the loop and then get straight to a partner who's all singing, all dancing, knight in shining armor, and is going to take away all your pain. That is not going to happen. You're going to add to your pain. This person is going to bring their own sets of challenges, and it's just going to get more and more complex. So I would
beautiful. I absolutely love how you started and you throughout the show, and even as we end, even more heightened by everything that you've said. Now, in a few seconds, we're going to be ending. So tell me, how do people reach you?
Okay, so as I've mentioned throughout, I work with women only. So I have a private Facebook group called Take Control of Your Life. There's tons of value in there. I do deliver a lot of free training. So women are welcome to join that. You can find it from my personal profile, which is called Uzma, Naqv, and in there there'll be links to join the private Facebook group. I have an Instagram account, TikTok account, and also YouTube and whatever else happens in the
Brilliant.
world out there. You all, men and women, are welcome to gain the value from that. The private Facebook group, though, is only for women. You're welcome to connect with me on there.
Thank you so much, Uzma. You know, honestly, I cannot have asked for anyone better for tonight's topic. You've literally given us an amazing, you know, insight and journey into this world of self-development. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Uzma. Please do take care of how you're feeling, and if you do need to contact her, make sure you do reach out. I would advise you to rewind this episode, look again, and inshallah you will hopefully see her in a few moments. Inshallah, we will be back next week with another topic and episode. Take care, have a lovely evening, and we'll see you in next week's show. But make sure you keep those comments coming through. It's really important that we do have your engagement. We're obviously addressing all the issues that you want on every show. So make sure you keep connecting with us. We really do appreciate it. Thank you all from here on British Muslim TV. See you next week, same time. Salam.